All right, this thing came out about Hillary talking about Jesus to the Methodist, and I wanted to talk about it. So let me go ahead and show you what she had to say. It was a convention of Methodist women, and she's explaining her definition of Christianity. And she goes on to say that she was struggling to reconcile her father's stern view of self-reliance with her mother's more compassionate view. So you got to wonder, how did she reconcile that? In what way? I mean, to me, it seems like she's completely abandoned her father and just focuses on the compassion, although her compassion is really not compassion at all. I mean, if you would say it would be compassionate to feed somebody who's hungry, but tomorrow they'll be hungry again, and the day after, and the day after, and the day after. Is that compassion? Or would it be more compassionate to teach them to be self reliant and to take care of themselves so that they're not having to come back every day begging down on their hands and knees? And this is the question that we have between the conservatives and the progressives. Conservatives believe that it's more compassionate to teach a man to take care of himself, give him the tools and the knowledge and let him take care of himself. And guess what? He won't be coming back tomorrow looking for food. He won't. But the Democrats, not all of them, but I would say the progressives, believe that they need to do this because they want that guy to come back over and over and over again. Well, let's see what she had to say about Jesus and his concern for the poor. Well, all remember the story of Jesus and the loaves and fishes, and 5,000 men with their families came to listen to Jesus. And while they were out there, it was far out in the wilderness, and there was no food or water. So the disciples came to Jesus and said, well, let's make sure that we're getting it right. You can't see it all, but I'll go ahead and read it out. It says in Matthew 14:15 that, as it was getting dark and the disciples came to Jesus, they said, this is a remote place and it's getting late. Send the crowds away so they can go to the village and buy themselves some food. Because remember, the disciples had never seen Jesus create food out of nothing, and they just assumed that, like the disciples had to do in the past, go and buy yourself some food. And, these people are hungry and they've been out there for a long time. So the disciples were very compassionate for the people. But the way Hillary is trying to make it, they weren't compassionate at all. So let's continue. Jesus said, they don't need to go away. Give them something to eat. And the disciples said, but we only have 5 loaves of bread and 2 fishes. You know, 5,000 men with all their families are hungry. So then Jesus told them what to do and how to do it. So that's what they did. They obeyed Jesus and started bringing the fish and the loaves to him where he was able to multiply it. But here's what Hillary had to say about the disciples. And I really believe that her idea is that she's trying to compare the disciples to the Republicans, kind of. And in a way, it's kind of a nice thing that she does that. She's saying the Republicans are disciples of Christ. They're just confused because they didn't realize that Jesus wanted these people to be fed right there and not to send them away. So she's saying the disciples came to Jesus and suggested that they send them away. See? Suggested they send away the people to find food, to fend for themselves. Fend for themselves. Send them away, Jesus. Send them away. Let them figure it out on their own. This is the wording that she used. And Jesus said, no, you feed them. He was teaching a lesson about responsibility and share that we all share. Oh, really? Is that what he said? No, you feed them. The disciples said, send them away and let them fend for themselves. No, you feed them. Well, let's see what he said. They came to him and said, this is a remote place. You can't read it all here, but I'll read it for you. And it's already getting late. Send the crowds away so they can go to the village and buy themselves some food. Does that sound like they were being uh, incompassionate for the people? Did it seem like they had no compassion for the people? Go, let them fend for themselves, the worthless pieces of scum. This is the way she. And then Jesus said, "Oh, no, 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 you feed them." Where does Jesus say you feed them? He said, "They do not need to go away. You give them something to eat." That's what he said. That's the correct words. And they answered from their fleshly perspective. We only have 5 loaves and 2 fishes, and over 5,000 men with their families. We're talking about 20,000 people probably. How are we going to feed them with 5 fishes or 2 fishes and 5 loaves? It's just impossible. And with man, it is impossible. And what Jesus was teaching was not about compassion, but about the power of God, about how what is impossible with man is possible with God. Sure, the people could have gone away. Sure, they could have got the food. It would have been difficult. It's a long trek. They're hungry. They're thirsty. They have young people, children. It's difficult. And Jesus had compassion. The disciples did too, but their compassion was on the physical realm. They couldn't see any other way for the people to get fed, but they knew that the people needed to be fed. And they didn't know that Jesus could turn 5 loaves and 2 fishes into enough to feed 20,000 people. They didn't know. That's what their compassion was there, because they're saying it's late. Jesus, it's late. These people need to go get some food. And Jesus agreed, but he had a different agenda. He said, they don't need to leave here. You feed them. Get the food out here and let's feed them. That's what he was saying. Who fed the people? Jesus did, right? He's the one that broke the loaves. He's the one that divided up the food. He put it in the baskets and gave it to the disciples, and they handed it out. But who fed the people? Not the disciples. They didn't have the food to feed them. All they had was a little tiny bit of food. So Hillary's whole argument is that the disciples, much like the Republicans, are cold-hearted people. They're kind of selfish. Go, let the people, send them away. Send them away, she said. The disciples said to Jesus and suggested they send them away for the people to find food, to fend for themselves. Where does he say anything about fending for himself? So clearly she is twisting the Bible, and I believe there's something about that in the Bible. It talks about um, future leaders that would twist the Word of God. So just so we all know that what she's trying to do is try to make people see the Republicans as these wannabe disciples who don't understand that Jesus is compassionate, but they are cold-hearted. Send them away. Let them go fend for themselves. Yeah, that's what the disciples did. What a moron. I mean, really. And look at this picture. And I can't even imagine that anybody could look at this person in this face and say, this person is compassionate. Miss, what does it matter now? So compassionate. The families of the dead from the Egyptian consulate, where she didn't send anybody to protect them. And she refused to send them uh, people and gear and stuff that would save their lives. So she's so compassionate. Oh, so compassionate. And then for the first 3 weeks after the incident, she continued to talk about how people on YouTube are the problem. YouTube videos are the problem. So, I personally believed that the entire thing was a scheme to attack the free speech of people on YouTube. Remember that? That was the whole argument, that it was a YouTube video that sparked this attack. Of course, it came out later that that was pure bull, but she continued talking about it for a long time. She doesn't like the American people, and she doesn't like our freedoms. She wants to force us to do charity work that she believes in. And some of the charity work all seems good and wonderful, but the truth is, it's all part of a plan to control people. She's not interested in helping anybody. Do you see her going out of her way to go and help people? I mean, physically, is she going to the food banks and helping them? Is she going to the soup kitchens and volunteering? Of course not. She has no concern for poor people at all. It's all about power. I mean, just look at that face. If you want to find out more about her, you should really start with Vince Foster and Whitewater and work your way from there. Anyway, just thought I'd bring this up. This just bugs me to no end. Good talking to you guys. Talk to you later. Bye.